This week on the WriterCon podcast.
So I have found it super helpful to talk to other writers. So I run an author interview series that I started when the pandemic descended to help my fellow writers get the word out about their books in the wake of canceled in-person events. And in the past 3+ years, I've interviewed I think I stopped counting at 350 interviews. And I like to nerd out about the craft. And so I consider that my unofficial MFA.
Welcome to WriterCon, a gathering place for writers to share their knowledge about writing and the writing world. Your hosts are William Bernhardt, bestselling novelist and author of the Red Sneaker books on writing, and Rene Gutteridge, bestselling author of over 30 novels and screenplays.
Hi, writers. I'm joined today, as usual, by our sound engineer, Jesse Ulrich, and Rene Gutteridge. We are less than 1 week away from WriterCon. The excitement continues to build. Rene, what are you most excited about? Lisa Gardner, manuscript reviews, rescue animals. What is it?
Food trucks.
Food trucks. That's supposed to be my thing, but you can take it, okay?
Oh, was that your thing? I'm sorry. Well, we all are food and we like food. And so it's actually, I'm excited about all of it. I mean, if you haven't been, folks, it's so fun. And we get more and more excited as it comes up because we know that there's a buzz that is sort of created, and once you get there you're like, wow, this is as big as they said it would be, and it is. And we have a lot of new and fun things planned this year, so yeah, we'll get it done.
I mean, all that educational stuff is great, but when I got food trucks lined up, I thought, okay, now we got a party.
We are over the top at this point.
Jesse, how about you? Same question, except you don't need any more animals. So
no, I don't.
What's your favorite part?
I mean, I'm honestly looking forward to. Again, there's just an energy about being around creatives. Yeah. I just love it. Like, doesn't matter what the creative aspect is. It's just always fun being around creatives doing and talking about creative things. So.
Agreed. All right, our interview today is with Sara DiVello, a true crime novelist, and she's also the creator and host of Mystery and Thriller Mavens, which is a popular interactive Facebook group. And for her monthly Mystery and Thriller Mavens live event, she has interviewed more than 300 authors, ranging from the best-selling and world-renowned to the buzziest new debuts. Her new book, which is based on a true historical unsolved mystery, is called Broadway Butterfly. We'll talk to Sara right after the news segment. Jesse, take us away. Story number 1, bad news for any of you who may be using Prosecraft, which is similar to Grammarly or other programs in that it analyzes your submission, your writing, and gives you feedback on statistics and word usage and passive voice and what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong. Anyway, this one was called Prosecraft, and it has now been shut down after an author backlash relating to, you guessed it, artificial intelligence. Turns out Prosecraft has been using novels without the author's knowledge or consent to help power this data-driven project to analyze people's writing before it was shut down. Turns out they had used the full text of over 25,000 books, all copyrighted material, to develop a library of data. But once authors found out about this, they were not crazy about the idea. Zach Rosenberg was the author who first brought this site to the attention of authors on X, the site formerly known as Twitter, right? Like squiggly symbol, the artist formerly known as Prince. Anyway, more and more authors started speaking out, and Prosecraft did admit to using, quote, AI algorithms and a lot of words from a lot of fiction. And now they have shut down the site. Rene, you've spoken recently, like on the last podcast, about your strong feelings about authors using AI. This program, of course, is not exactly designed to generate writing. It's designed to analyze writers' work, but I still don't like it. What do you think?
Well, back in the olden days when people wanted to write, they would actually read these books and learn from them by reading them instead of letting a robot teach them in this weird way. I've never been a fan of Grammarly, actually. I think you should try to learn that on your own. And so this is not going to teach you great prose, folks. So I would abandon immediately just to respect yourself as a writer. And as a writer, yes, I'm against it.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me when word processors first came out, and any place you went, the first question was always, do you use a word processor? And few, particularly literary writers, wanted to admit it because, that didn't really fit with being an inspiration writer and disturbing the image of you up in some shabby garret working with a quill pen or something. But I'm with you 100%. You should learn how to do that, and you learn it by doing it and reading those books, as you said, but not. I think people are always searching for the secret program or machine, or if I just have this, then I'll break through. And the truth is, the only thing that'll do that is by spending a lot of time reading and writing. And yet we have one of these AI stories every single week. Jesse, I'm starting, the Ray Bradbury story where the guy goes back in time to shoot dinosaurs, but then he steps off the track and kills a butterfly. Yep. And a few million years later, the world is wrecked. Is that what we're on the forefront of right here? Is AI starting now, but soon going to turn into the Terminator or something?
Listen, I'll get worried about AI when it can accurately spell people's names correctly. So until that time, I'm not super worried.
All right, you heard it from Jesse.
Yeah, don't worry, everyone. Just relax. All right, just like with every other technology fad, it eventually will get rules or restrictions, or companies will realize they can't actually make money off it, and then it'll go away, and it'll just go back to its core use of just coming up with, say, podcast show notes, which is a great AI tool. It saves me a lot of time because I'm not a writer.
What?
So I know. But again, I still have to go in and spell everyone's name correctly because it can't do that. It can do a good job of figuring out what topics we talk about. It can't figure out how to spell those topics or our names. So
because it's just listening in effect,
yes.
Right? And transcribing. I got you. All right, news story number 2, and this relates to a long simmering rumor, and I'll just say I was hesitant to put this in the show only because I'm afraid a new development will arise before we can get this out on the podcast. But here's the story. According to some sources, the U.S. FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, is preparing a lawsuit against Amazon. Now, to be sure, this is just the latest salvo from the FTC, and they've been looking at Amazon for a long time. For that matter, they've been focusing on challenging a lot of the big tech companies that seem to be completely dominant in their arena. Any case like that is going to take years to be resolved, but the idea of this lawsuit against Amazon would ultimately be to break it up, like they did to Standard Oil 100 and some years ago, break it up into many separate companies. According to Politico, and here I'm quoting, the complaint is likely to focus on challenges to Amazon Prime rules that the FTC says block lower prices on competing websites and policies the FTC believes force merchants to use Amazon's logistics and advertising services. This would be, of course, like the provision in Amazon KDP that precludes you from giving the price of any book you're publishing on Amazon a higher price than it has anywhere else. And if Amazon's little bots find out that your book is available anywhere else for a lower price, they will immediately change it to match that price. Rene, do you want to see Amazon broken up?
Well, I think it's not a bad idea, and
Hot take.
More direct than I expected. Yeah.
What are we gonna call Amazon though if it's broken up? It can't be Amazon anymore.
It'll be Amazon Publishing, Amazon Movies, Amazon.
Well, then it's not the Amazon. It's like a smaller forest.
Listen, they broke up the Mama Bells. They'll figure it out.
Okay, smaller problems for another day.
Yeah, that shouldn't be stopping us from breaking up Amazon. What will we call them?
I'm just thinking ahead because they're probably going to need a name. So
there we go.
Just helping out.
Trademark it now. Buy the URLs now for every possible Amazon.
There you go.
I'm gonna add that out of the podcast idea. So I can go do it.
No, bear in mind the only reason Jeff Bezos chose that name is because he wanted something that symbolized that they carried everything. In other words, from A to Z. And if you've ever noticed, the little arrow under the name and the logo goes from the A to the Z.
Yep.
So what they would want is another word that has an A and a Z in it, wouldn't they?
True, yeah.
Amazing, or something like that. Amazing Amazonian amusements. No, that doesn't have a Z in it. Darn.
Gosh, this is harder than we thought, guys.
I should have planned this.
It's the internet. You just make it amuse and change the last S to a Z.
We've got to get AI involved in this. So clearly.
If you misspell it, then you can get a trademark.
That's right.
All right, enough of that. Jesse, cue up the music. Let's talk to Sara DiVello. Sara, welcome to the podcast.
I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, thank you for coming. Okay, we have a traditional first question I say almost every time. If you could offer writers one piece of advice, what would it be?
So I have found it super helpful to talk to other writers. So I run an author interview series that I started when the pandemic descended to help my fellow writers get the word out about their books in the wake of canceled in-person events. And in the past 3+ years, I've interviewed I think I stopped counting at 350 interviews. And I like to nerd out about the craft. And so I consider that my unofficial MFA. So I like to say, what have you learned? What works? What doesn't work? What have you learned since book one to book now? What would you do differently? And then I take that and try to implement what I can. I try to end every chapter with a question. I try to think about where it feels like it's dragging to me. If it's dragging to me, it's dragging to them because I'm fascinated by everything. And then I just keep trying to polish, and then until I'm so sick of it that I never want to see it again. And then I think maybe I'm getting close, and I polish some more.
Oh, man. Okay. I said, thank you for giving me my first opening to mention WriterCon, our annual writers conference, because we clearly need to get you down next year to talk about craft. I think you sound pretty savvy on the subject, but we'll get to something more immediate, which is your book, which has just been released as this podcast comes out. There's Broadway Butterfly. Tell us about this book.
So Broadway Butterfly is a true crime thriller about the murder of a scandalous flapper in 1923 New York City and the investigation into that case, which creates ramifications that ripple all the way from the gangster underworld all the way up to the White House. It is true. It is wild. It is fascinating. It is scandalous. And 100 years this year, I dove in and tried to solve it.
Yeah. That's fantastic. I mentioned to you earlier that I, many years ago, wrote a book called Nemesis that involved the still unsolved Cleveland torso murders and Elliot Ness, and I offered a solution at the end. So I know how risky and dangerous it is to go amateur sleuth and try and pull something off like this. But judging from all these advanced reviews, you did it brilliantly. How much time did you spend researching?
9 years.
Wow, well, that should be enough. 9 years? Seriously?
9 years, almost a decade of my life. Yes.
Well, I bet you did get it right then.
Well, I mean, the only thing I haven't done is grab a shovel and a flashlight and head up there to dig the body up myself. My husband is trying to hold me back. He's always like, I'm the gas, he's the brakes. He's always trying to, keep me out of prison, which I appreciate. But I really want to go dig that, exhume the body, scrape under the fingernails and get some DNA. That's the only way I can be more sure.
Yeah, and I'm not sure that would be even more illuminating than your book probably already is. I read in the PR materials that they sent me that the term sugar daddy, and since we're in barbecue court right now, I'm sure everybody's thinking of Sugar Daddy Ken, which was apparently a real thing. But anyway, the term sugar daddy arises from this historical incident, right?
Yes. So the terms sugar daddy and its partner in crime, sugar baby, are in our cultural vernacular today because of this case, because of this woman, because of this investigation. We use those terms today only because of them, which I love.
Wow, that is fascinating.
Isn't it so fun?
So what has the response been to your proposed solution? What have you been hearing?
So it's been so interesting. Book List said I give readers everything they need to draw their own conclusions, which was my goal. Because what I love to do when I'm reading mystery is to play amateur detective. I mean, I grew up as a Nancy Drew girl. I wanted to be that amateur detective. And so I want readers to have that same experience. And so I give them all of the evidence and then I let them, play sleuth. And, mostly people seem to really like it, and a few people want me to be the sleuth for them and deliver a complete no questions, no wondering, just this is who, this is how, this is why. And what's really interesting is that because this is a true case, I think we're also used to reading fiction where it is, where you can create that kind of certainty, where you can say, oh, it was Miss Scarlet in the library with a candlestick. Real life doesn't work like that. And for me, that's more fascinating. I like the real part of it. But I think some people are, maybe a few readers are adjusting to that idea.
You mentioned earlier that this is a 100-year-old mystery. And I'm curious, what drew you to it, but how did you first hear about it?
So I found out about it in what started out as a completely ordinary way, which quickly turned into an extraordinary way. So I was home in Philadelphia for Thanksgiving. My poster keeps threatening to fall. The butterfly may flutter to the ground. We'll see. I was home in Philadelphia for Thanksgiving. And, the day after Thanksgiving, if you're not going to the Black Friday sales, which my family does not because we're not insane, there's not that, much to do. You're sitting around, you're eating your leftover turkey sandwich, you're, chatting with the family, and that's what we were doing, and reminiscing, and old family stories started to be told. And my Uncle Ed, who was visiting from DC, started to talk about how he and my Uncle David, after high school back in the 60s, when class let out, they used to sneak over to the old castle to sneak cigarettes and beers, as apparently you did back in the 60s.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so, I'm listening and I'm taking this in. And then I was like, wait a minute, what castle? Because my aunt lives in a very normal split level ranch, circa 1950s suburban neighborhood where every house looks pretty much the same. And so I'm looking around for this, castle. And my Uncle Ed said, well, in the next suburban development over, there used to be this grand estate and the ruins are still standing. Needless to say, I needed to know more. So all 11 of us, we jump in 3 cars, we caravan over, and there in the next split level ranch, neighborhood between the Subarus and the tulip beds are the remnants of a great estate. 50-foot tall pillars stretching skyward to nothing. Headless statues of Diana and Zeus. The remnants of a pool where a fountain used to gurgle, and the gurgling, statues are still there, but they don't have their heads. I mean, it was so bizarre. And then this is in people's yards. So you're, stepping through their yard and they're on the ground, just hanging out, just laying there is another statue. I mean, it was so bizarre. It was such an out of body, weird experience that I had to learn more about this great estate. So I dove down the rabbit hole, because I'm a nerd and I love research, and I learned everything. I'm just going to take this down. I learned everything that there was to learn about this great estate. It had 147 rooms. It was the third largest private home in the country. It was bigger than the White House. It had 28 bathrooms, 24 fireplaces, a staff of 70 full-time gardeners just to maintain the exquisite grounds. I mean, it was known as the Versailles of America, and it was, and now it's almost completely demolished. And so I was like, well, that was really fascinating. Anyway, I'm not in the castle writing business. So I left it, but I couldn't stop thinking about it because my spidey sense, all the hairs in the back of my neck were standing up, and they kept saying, there's a story here. There's a story here. And so 3 months later, I couldn't shake that feeling. I went back and I found a reference in a book from the 1950s, one line in one paragraph that referenced, in 1923, this once great estate was remotely linked to a murder. And I just got goosebumps. Ooh. And I said, there it is. That's the story I'm meant to tell.
I'm hooked. I need to read this now.
Yes.
I want to go see the remnants of this. Who knew? And it was right there in that adjacent neighborhood.
It was right there in that adjacent neighborhood. And I have put pictures of this on my website, saradivello.com/behind the scenes. Mm-hmm. So I actually took videos of walking people around this field that, where everybody's backyard abuts onto it. And I say, here's the pillars, here's the fountain, here's what's left standing. And I give little facts about the family. And then I have pictures of the family and pictures of all the people, because they're all real people in the case. So I have all of that on my website because I love this stuff. So I want to share the joy.
I love it. I'm going to go dive in. You've got me.
Yeah, let me say, as somebody who visited this morning before the interview, that it's really a nice feature on your website with the little mini biographies of the key people and the photographs. And it might even be a good warm-up. I can't imagine that anybody wouldn't be interested in the book after that. And this is, rarely do you see a book that has the kind of reviews you've had for this book already. And as we're recording this, it's not officially released yet, but you've got great reviews from Publishers Weekly and Kirkus and people like Lee Child and our WriterCon Sunday keynote speaker, Lisa Gardner, Yasmin Ango, who we had at WriterCon last year. So you've got a lot of distinguished praise for this 9-year effort. How must that feel?
I feel so incredibly grateful, humbled, and honored. I mean, Yasmin Ango is such an incredible human. I love her, and such a wonderful person and such a talented writer. So it was so wonderful and kind of her to weigh in with praise, as well as, Lisa Gardner and Lee Child. I've had the pleasure of interviewing Lee a couple times, and he is hilarious. That guy drinks 35 cups of coffee a day. His brother drinks 38. I was like, I would be shaking like, a leaf if I drank 3 cups of coffee a day. But to have the support of the community, of these incredibly distinguished writers who I admire, whose work I have devoured and enjoyed and felt nourished by, entertained by, to have them acknowledge me and welcome me and lend me their support through their words, it means everything. I'm so grateful.
I shouldn't even mention this, but one year at ITW, at Thriller Fest, I sat in the bar and talked with Lee Child for well over an hour before I even realized who he was. I was just having a nice chat with this guy with the kind of British accent, and at some point he mentioned Jack Reacher, and I thought, holy smokes.
He's so great. He's so great. I love him. Yeah. And he's extremely entertaining. I love Ray. Yeah.
I used to be on the board of ITW, but you're now their social media director or something like that. Is that correct?
Yes. I serve as the director of social media strategy for ITW. I've been in that role for almost 1 year, and it's such an incredible organization, and I love to be part of it.
Fantastic.
You also teach yoga and you enjoy gardening.
I am an urban, yes. So I teach yoga. I just taught yoga this morning. I teach on Zoom now. I haven't gone back to in-person since the pandemic.
Okay.
And which really cuts down on my commute time. So that's great.
Heck yeah.
And I am an urban gardener. So we have a little porch and I grow herbs, peppers, tomatoes, flowers. I have an urban oasis. It's a small space, but I'm quite productive. I froze 9 pounds of pesto last year for my basil.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. So that we can just enjoy pesto throughout the winter.
Do you think that those things kind of help inform your writing? Do they detract from it? How does that all fit in?
Thank you so much for asking. So I feel like they both help in separate ways. So because writing takes, at least me, a very long time. This one took me 9 years. That's delayed gratification, right? So you're working, unearthing. Research takes a very long time. So I might work for weeks to get one little nugget, and maybe I don't get the nugget, but maybe I do, and then I want to get the next nugget because it's very addictive. But so and then you're writing, and then you're editing, and then you're editing again, and then you're going through this very long pipeline of the process, and that's after you get the book deal, and then to get to the book deal is a very long process. So what I like is the immediacy of gardening. I dig the hole, I put the seedling, I cover it up, and the next day I can see my plant. Or you plant a seed, and a couple weeks later you have a little baby plant, and then you have a bud, and then you have a flower, and then you have a pepper, and then you have dinner. And it's so gratifying because you get to see and feel and taste and touch the fruits of your labor, literally, or the veggies of your labor, right away. Whereas there's such a long process to, I literally started this book 9 years ago. I've been waiting a long time to hold the fruit of this labor. So I need that, while I'm waiting for my book. Yoga helps me because I don't have to tell you guys that the path to publication is rocky, uncertain, and anxiety inducing. You have no idea if you'll get a book deal. You have no idea what you're going to get for that book deal. You have no idea if you get the agent, and if you get the book deal, and if you get a good deal, if readers will like it and it will do well. You just don't know. And that can really start to be very anxiety inducing for someone who's prone to anxiety. Hello. And so the tools of yoga, which help me to ground and center and stay present and to stay focused on my intention, which is to tell the story, are very helpful as I navigate the winding, often stressful path to publication.
Well, let me just cut in and ask, because I'm just curious, what do people have to do to join your yoga class? Is it open to the public, or is there a URL or something?
It's on my website, and it is open to the public. Yes, sir.
Cool. Great. Okay. I'm sorry, Lara.
I'll have to look into that too. No, that was a great question. I'm glad that you asked that one.
Yes, so I teach a very slow, very gentle, very meditative practice, and it's not athletic at all. We may spend the whole class lying down. That's my fave. And just
so much, yeah.
The practice of breathing and being and slowing down. Because we all know how to go fast, right? We all know how to go. I run in fifth gear all the time, but it's very hard to write and to write well when you're in fifth gear and things are just flying by. So what we have to do is teach ourselves that first gear and the tools to be present and to channel the story and tell the story.
I think this is probably why I always like to write best in the bathtub, because that's how I bring myself down and separate from the rest of the world. That's how I relax and can focus. So it's not really conducive to everyday behavior, though. I've got to learn to write outside the tub too. So I like these things that you're mentioning. Find something that you can say, I did this while the overarch is still in progress, and then find a way to relax and decompress. I love those.
Lara's forthcoming book, Writing Outside the Tub. Yes, but no, that's why I like to cook, for the same reason I like to garden, because I start the dinner, I got a pile of ingredients and half an hour I can cook a beautiful dinner in half an hour, or an hour if I'm doing something more elaborate. I have this beautiful plate, and it's so gratifying to hold it and eat it and feed others. Whereas like the book, you could be waiting for literally for years. The other thing too that's really interesting, Lara, is my next door neighbor in the apartment building 2 doors down, and she's moved since then. But anyway, she teaches creativity at Harvard Business School. And she said that the 3 places that people get their best ideas are the bath, driving, or when you're about to fall asleep. And the reason that is because your brain is relaxed and you're able to generate creative thinking in the same way that Einstein's best ideas came when he was a filing clerk in the patent office, because his brain was his she can explain it better than I could, but basically his busy brain was focused on the boring, repetitive, soothing motion of filing the patents. And so is it the reptilian part of his brain? I can't remember what Anne said, but basically the creative part of his brain was then able to generate his best ideas. So she said you should keep a notebook, beside the bathtub, beside your bed, and a voice, dictate option in the car, because that is the 3 times that people have their best ideas.
That is brilliant and fascinating. And it kind of confirms things that I've noticed, that this is true and real. How neat.
This is true and this is real, and this is taught at Harvard Business School. So there you go.
I'm learning so much today. This is wonderful. So tell us, what is your writing process like?
So my writing process is first I research, and then I queue all that up, and then I start to write my draft. And I try really hard not to censor myself. I try to follow the Anne Lamott, write a crappy first draft, and not let my editor brain get involved and say, you suck,
Yes.
This is terrible. I'm embarrassed for you. I try to, just say I'm writing a messy first draft and just get it all out on the page. This is not easy, because at first it's very hard to get into that creative, pure creator, no judgment mindset. But then I get into it and I just pour it out on the page. And a lot of people say that they don't like looking at a blank page. I love a blank page. I love to see that inviting blank whiteness for me to fill and create however I wish. I find it invigorating, stimulating, exciting. I love it. So then I am just, pouring it out on the page. And then I, to my surprise, I ended up having to continue to research while I was writing, because my book is historical, it's 100 years old, I would have to say, Julia zipped her coat. Oh crap, do they have zippers in 1923? Yes. Okay, and I'll just say she fastened her coat, she did it up.
That just saved you a research trip.
Yeah, exactly. I just saved myself 9 hours. But there's only so many times you can gloss over before it just becomes a little too. It's those enriching details which make it good. Like it took me a day and a half, probably 15 hours, to find out how much daycare cost in 1923.
Oh, wow.
It cost a nickel a day. So that is not in keeping with the usual 17x rate of inflation that the Bureau of Labor Statistics has averaged it out, 1923 to 2023. But that matters, or something like that matters, because when you're reading and you're a nerd who loves to learn and feels fed by by the nourishment of knowledge, those little details feel feel tasty. And so I wanted to spend the time to get those, not that particular one, although I did spend time on that particular one, but things like it. So then I ended up in the revision also spending time on more research, because I had to find those little details, which I wouldn't have had to find if I was writing a book that took place today, because I'd already know how much stuff costs.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Do you write, so during the day, do you have a set time that you like to sit and write, or what's your day-to-day, like just getting the pages knocked out? How does that look for you?
So I'm a night owl. When the moon comes up, I come alive. I'm like a werewolf.
Fist bump over the Zoom. Yeah, I'm also a night owl.
Yeah. See, Lara, I knew that. We like baths, we like gardening, we like cooking, we like eating. We're night owls. Yeah. So I usually spend the the earlier part of the day doing the administration of the household, right? Like I am answering emails, replying, setting up interviews, or, arranging to interview professors, or I went to a lot of subject matter experts, chasing down who is that expert and trying to get on their calendar, doing that research, whatever. So first I'm doing the administrative stuff, then I'm doing the research, then I am, knocking out the pages. But the writing flows most easily for me at night. And so does the editing, actually, because when I have removed the pesky to-do list from my brain, I feel I have the space to create. I have the freedom to create, because I'm not like, oh, did I send that email? Oh, don't forget to call, Susie or whoever.
Agreed.
Yeah.
I think our brains work pretty similarly. And what I really like about this is I occasionally have people who will approach me quietly and embarrassedly say, I keep hearing from everyone that they get up at 5 a.m. and start writing then, and they will say, I guess I can't do it because I can't write at 5 a.m. And I tell them, you need to do what works for you. People who write best at 5 a.m. should make that their writing time. But if you don't beat your head against the wall trying to do something that doesn't work for you.
Lara, I am so glad you said that, because before I had written this book, I went to a book festival, and a writer who I very greatly admired and still admired, someone in the audience asked her, how do you write? What's the best way? And she said, in no uncertain terms, you have to look at this like a job. And if you want other people to take you seriously, you have to take you seriously. So you got to get up, you got to get dressed for the day, like dressed for a job. And she said, I keep banker's hours. That's what she said. She said, I'm at my desk at 7 p.m. and I don't leave until 5 p.m. And I felt bad about that for years, because I thought, well, here's this writer who I so greatly admire, and she was so definite about what was the right way to write.
The right way.
And what was her way. And so I thought, well, I must not be, a real writer, or I must not be doing it right, or whatever. And only to then finally just say, you know what, this is me. I'm going to be me, because I'm 45. I'm turning 46 in a week. I feel more confident in my skin, and I feel free to be me. I feel safe to be who I am. And only to then have her post a couple weeks ago, this new book, has taken me over, and I just write when the spirit moves me, and I just do what I need to do. And I write at night, and I write at midnight, and I write at 9 p.m. And I was like, oh, so things have evened out.
It is okay. Some of us are messy creatives. I just had to acknowledge that. Some of us are just very messy creatives,
Yes.
and some of us we just have to do what we can do. But I do agree with taking it seriously and making it a priority. I tell people, just don't say, okay, we can write whenever, but then never write.
Exactly.
Like, that's the
you
important
can
thing.
take it seriously and write at night. That's the thing. As long as you're getting your work done, you're getting your words down, you're getting that page count keeps increasing. That is taking it seriously. But trying to adhere to someone else's schedule just doesn't work. Because you know what? For my 40th birthday, my sister gave me the 23andMe, and I did, I swabbed my cheek, I sent it in, whatever.
Yes.
And guess what? My genetic test said, you're a night person. And it's true. I've been a night person since I was 8 years old. I was a kid who couldn't sleep. I am a night owl. It's literally genetic.
Interesting.
My husband gets up at 5 a.m. without an alarm. That's his genetic makeup.
Right.
You can't change who you are genetically, and that's okay. Just be you. Do what works, but take it seriously.
Love it.
Well, this has been a fascinating interview, Sara. I really appreciate you coming on. Best of luck with this 9-year journey that has culminated in Broadway Butterfly. I think you're going to have a big hit on your hands.
Oh, thank you so much, William. I really appreciate that. That's so lovely.
Of course. Well, thanks again. Hope to see you again soon.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on.
This is the last podcast before WriterCon, so this will be the last time this year you will hear me say that it is not too late to register for WriterCon, September 1 through 4 in Oklahoma City, and it is certainly not too late to come to ReaderCon on Monday, September 4th, free and open to the public. We have so much fun in store for you, and so many great authors and books and autographs. Come join the fun. All right. right, then. Until next time, keep writing. And remember, you cannot fail if you refuse to quit. See you next time.